Right, so this is the last lesson in the networking unit, and the two things that we're going to look at this lesson is files on the internet and the internet programming languages that you can use. Right, so when we consider files on the internet, we have to consider what kind of files we're going to upload to the internet so that we can use them effectively. And there are different types of files for different jobs. We have GIF images, JPEG images, PNG images, and bitmap images. Now each of these image types has a different property or a different reason for using them. We've covered this a little bit before in Key Stage 3, and we definitely will have covered it in ICT. GIF images are great for clip art because they are low quality and low file size. They are almost the perfect internet file because obviously if you're trying to make a website load really fast, you want a low file size image. And these GIFs would come in kilobytes, so it's only going to be about 15K in size. They're really, really tiny. And as long as you're using big, thick, bright colors, you're probably going to use a GIF image. JPEG images are different. JPEG images are smaller, of larger file size than a GIF, but they have good quality or better quality images than a GIF image. So a JPEG image has good quality. It's good quality, and they're good for web photos because obviously the file size is small, but it's not going to. It's still going to keep that kind of quality in the image, so it's going to actually make your life better. So good for web pictures. And the average file size for a JPEG image will be about 800K. So we're still under 1 megabyte for a JPEG image, which is really, really good, and that's what we're aiming for. PNG files, this is the format actually for fireworks files. So whenever you work with fireworks, they do actually save in PNG file format. Now these are, again, slightly bigger than a JPEG. And a PNG file is the balance. What I call the balance, which is good quality, good qual for a reasonable size. That's why I tend to do most of my graphics in PNG file. Okay, they're useful for the PNG files are useful for photos, and the average file size for that is probably about 900K to about 1 megabyte. And we're on page. Okay. And the last one is bitmap. Now bitmap files are the highest quality. The downside of this being the highest quality, of course, is a high file size. So if you take a photo with a good quality digital camera, then you are going to end up with a bitmap file. But that bitmap file obviously will allow you to have a lot more detail in your photograph, and it's going to make a big difference if you're doing a lot of photo editing and changing things around. The downside of this is an average bitmap file could be up to 15 megabytes in size, which is huge. So we don't want to, so it's all about balance. It's all about deciding what file you're going to use and when you're going to use it. When you think about uploading to the internet, smaller is better, because obviously if you imagine that you're going to use all your download limits, downloading files that are huge. So if you're making big interactive banners, you want to make sure that they're as small in file size as possible, so then you're not distracting the user and you're making sure that the user gets the best experience. Now when we talk about the internet, there is a language of the internet, and the language of the internet is HTML. Now we have discussed this a little bit in our lessons as well, and HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. And this is the language of the internet. Okay? It's important because hypertext markup language is for laying out every page on the internet. And the way it works is that if you use these things called tags, and these tags allow you to display stuff onto the screen. So if I use HTML tag, it tells me that I'm using a HTML web page, and if I put something in I tags, it'll put it in italic. And this idea of laying out web pages is really, really important. So obviously HTML is really, really good. Now there are other languages that we can use on the internet that are really useful, but these ones are not as important as HTML, because HTML is the one that defines that it is a website and that makes it a website. There are languages like JavaScript, which is good for making interactive pages. There's things like PHP, which is good for storing user details. And there are other ones. There are also things like Ruby. There's also ASP. And most of these languages add some level of interactive features to the website. So you can use them for lots and lots of different things. But the main thing to take from this is that none of those languages would work without having HTML as the first part of the web page. So in this lesson we've talked about what HTML stands for, how the pages are basically laid out. Of course you'll cover this more in other lessons, and what the different file types are for uploading images to the internet.